the U.S. House of Representatives official ornament. Very nice.
Let's see what the official. Yeah, go ahead.
It's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I just want to remind everybody to please silence your cell phone at this time, and also that the meeting is being videotaped and will be available to view on our website and the local cable channel, and any public comments made will be part of the recording. Ken, roll call, please.
Sure. Blackburn.
Present.
Hageman.
Aye.
Hedge. Howard.
Here?
Jones.
Here.
Craybill.
Here.
Mashigian.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum of 6.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I motion to approve the agenda as stated.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is the approval of regular council meeting minutes from December 18th, 2023. Do I hear a motion?
Also move.
Second? Or do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is the president's communication. I just wanted to read something that has recently come up in the village. The village office has received correspondence from an attorney representing an organization that intends to circulate petitions in support of a ballot initiative that would end Bingham Farms' prohibition on recreational marijuana retail stores and create a process that would establish regulations for said business. The proposed ballot language, which would essentially be an ordinance, was enclosed with his correspondence. According to the attorney, his client has, and I'm going to quote, connected with many of your constituents and believes that there would be a strong grassroots support for the passage of this ballot initiative. I mention this today because Bingham Farms residents may get visitors at their front door at some point seeking signatures for this petition. Whether an individual signs or not is a personal decision. However, please be aware the door-to-door signature gathering is a lawful legal process. Village Manager Ken Martin has a copy of the proposed ballot language. If you'd like to review that, feel free to contact the village office. Next is public comments not on the published agenda. Before we hold public comment, I'd like to read the following disclaimer. Comments made by persons during public comment are personal comments and opinions and are not necessarily the opinion of the village council, and the accuracy or truth of such public comments has not been confirmed by the village. The meeting is now open for public comment. If you would like to address council, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. As a reminder, there will be no back and forth dialogue between council and the public or members of the public with each other.
Good evening. My name is Mark Clements, and I'm an assistant city manager with the city of Birmingham. I came before the council tonight to talk about the city of Birmingham's Aging in Place committee that they have. It's an ad hoc committee. It was formed in the summer of 2023, and its purpose was several things. To study the area's demographics, to look at existing services, what services may be necessary in the future, do a community survey engagement program, and then come up with an action plan to help our older adults age safely and healthy in their homes. So as part of that, the committee has been meeting monthly since the summer of 23, and we have now completed our community survey, and I have that here. It's a 2-page document, front and back. It has a QR code up at the top, so it can be completed online as well. And I also have a press release about the community survey, and it also has a hyperlink to the internet and also a way for them to be able to print it out online. So the reason I bring this to your attention is obviously you are a partner in our local agreement with Next, along with Bingham, Franklin, and Beverly Hills. So we wanted to make sure that we included your residents in our community survey because we feel like you're partners in our support of Next. And obviously, the city of Birmingham has purchased the YMCA building, and we're hoping in the next 3 years that we're going to be able to work together as a team and come up with a plan to give Next a home and make sure that our older residents all have a place to go and join and live productive lives. So with that being said, I have brought a couple hundred copies of these, which I'll leave behind me. Again, the press release has the information for the hyperlink and the copies, and I encourage all of your residents to, we meet the last Wednesday of every month at Birmingham City Hall. Anyone can come. We would like any feedback at all from someone from a resident from Bingham Farms, anyone from the commission, or the council, for your input. Okay? Any questions? Very much. Thank you.
Well, I have a question.
May I address the question, or?
Sure.
Okay.
Is this questionnaire also posted online? And if so, where can we find it?
Okay, it is posted online, and then I will leave there's actually a link right here on this this document, and you can scan this little QR code with your phone, and it takes you right to the survey. It's on Engage Birmingham, so you can do it online. Yep. Anything else? Thank you for your time
Thank you
today.
so
I appreciate
much.
Thanks, Mark.
it. Yep, see you guys.
You want to just, leave them?
I'll put them right here on this little table.
Sure.
Perfect.
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move to discussion topics, and we are going to start with the Fire Department monthly report with the chief.
Okay, what I do. Good evening. You have my written report. I just had one other thing to add to the report. Approximately 1 week ago, we had a structure fire over on Bingham Lane. Wanted to talk about that for just a moment. So this was a single-family dwelling. It happened in the middle of the night. The alarm time came in around 2:40 a.m. Just so happens, the homeowner was watching a basketball game, I think. Either that or a football game. Not quite sure. But went out to use the facilities and smelled smoke. Ended up calling 911 after he couldn't figure out what was going on. Tried to turn on a light in the foyer, and the light wouldn't turn on. Went down to the circuit panel, found that the breaker had tripped, and he couldn't reset the panel. So not being able to do that and smelling the smoke, he ended up calling 911. When we arrived, what we had found was there was a wall between the garage and the fireplace that had caught on fire inside of the wall. The studs did. So we had to demo out some of the garage cabinetry to get access to the wall, but we were able to put this out. This was a house that was just shy of 8,000 square feet. And I am so glad that he was watching that game, whatever it was. And if there was any winner, it was him. Because with the assistance of Beverly Hills, Farmington Hills, and City of Troy, who supplied apparatus and personnel under our mutual aid agreement, we were able to get this fire knocked down very, very, very quickly. There was damage in the home with reference to water that was used to extinguish the fire, and we had Belfour, it's called 1-800-BOARD-UP, was out that very night. They were working into the day. So I'm sad to say that the event occurred, but I'm happy to say that the home was not anywhere near damaged as it could have been had he been sleeping at the time. And I'm very grateful for the assistance of the other communities that supported us. It was 8 degrees that night, so it was a little bit chilly, but everyone persevered. There were no injuries from the fire department crews or the residents. Everyone was able to evacuate, and we moved forward. So.
Robert had nothing but praise. I live next door,
Oh, okay.
and of course, I slept through the whole thing. So,
You have good draperies then.
yeah, I started getting calls like, "Are you okay?" And I'm going, "Well, yeah, I'm great. Why?" Because there were fire trucks lined up on the road.
Right.
And he was so appreciative of the fact that not only did you respond so quickly and professionally, but that other communities supported us.
Yes, and I forgot to mention, we had assistance from the police, that were there, and the fire is being investigated currently by the Oakland County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
So there's nothing that I found that was intentional in nature. It was just they have the expertise to dig through the site. Yes, sir.
Any takeaway for residents other than smell smoke, electrical problem, call you?
So that- it's
Any
a-
other learning experience?
Yeah, it's a great question, and that one is really unique because homes, I always recommend smoke and heat detectors in every space of the home, no matter the size, but not only the areas where you live in, but also those void areas, attics, garages. If you rehabbed a home and you have spaces that are just not accessible to anything, that's a perfect place to put an alarm in. A garage typically doesn't have a smoke detector. It has a heat detector because garages are somewhat dusty in nature. His alarm did not go off because it was in its the stage where it didn't create enough heat to set off the garage alarm, and it wasn't intruding into the home because it was on the other side of the fireplace. So it was just one of those anomalies that had he not been up, this fire would have been much larger by the time they found out. The only suggestion I would have is understand, if you're living in your home, understand the systems, electrical, especially if there's a problem. Act on it. This is not one of those times to say, well, I'll just leave the breaker the way it is and I'll deal with it in the morning. It was interesting. In his case, he had 3 breakers that had tripped. And the reason they had tripped was where the fire had started above the origin, there was electrical wires and communication wires that were impacted from the fire in the wall. But it was just one of those weird things. The other thing I would say for anyone is the website ready.gov, which prepares people to plan for disasters. I would say plan for a disaster in your own home. It doesn't have to be worldwide or even in the village. It could be just your house. And a fire is very disastrous. So plan on what's important to you. Obviously, people and pets are top. But think about those things that if you had to evacuate very quickly, you leave, work on your own health, but if there's time, as there was in this, permitting going back in and saving those things that you cherish. And I'm not talking about things that are financially valuable, because it could be family photos, it could be some sort of heirloom, something like that. So just have a plan of knowing where people are, knowing where things are, knowing where you should meet up if you aren't able to evacuate through the same door. So that way you can regroup, figure out where you're moving forward, and then working with the emergency officials if we're able to get you in. In this case, we were. And in this case, I actually assigned 2 of my firefighters to assist him in getting some of those valuables out, because we care very, houses can be replaced, there's insurance, but it's those intangibles or tangibles that we have spent our lives collecting that mean so much to us, whether or not they're worth monetary dollars. So, in terms of alarms, definitely have an alarm, definitely make sure it's monitored. It's got a report somewhere, and make sure it's maintained properly, especially if you're working on floors, walls, ceilings, things that create dust. Those things tend to not only cover the system where the system won't function, but they could also cause false alarms while you're doing the work. So definitely make sure that everything's working. So thank you for asking.
Tony, did the fire hydrant across the street work? Because I saw Oakland County guys out there the next morning.
They said it didn't. They've blamed you for, no, I'm kidding. The fire hydrant worked just fine. Because of the temperature, so 2 things. We never took water out of the hydrant, but we did end up stretching supply line had we needed to.
Okay.
The concern was that 8 degrees, water freezes very quickly if it's not moving. Because it's winter, and with your contract with Oakland County, what is it?
Oakland County Water Resources
Commission, that's it, yes. With your contract, the village contract with them, anytime we use a hydrant in the winter, we will pump it out, but we will also contact Oakland County to make sure everything is good. So the pickup truck you saw the next morning was Oakland County, literally just making sure that our job was done correctly.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, are you finished with your report, or do you have time for another question? There's a scheduled fire training drill on February 2nd or something with one of the homes on Bingham Lane that is going to be demolished?
Bristol Lake.
Or, I thought it was
No.
No, it's
Bingham.
There was a home that we were working on prior to the first Sunday in February due to their not being able to obtain the demolition permit from City of
Still.
Southfield. The training, we did not participate in any training, and the house, my understanding from today, will be demolished, should be demolished this
Wednesday.
week. So we won't be training on the house.
Okay, because I see it's all cordoned off. I didn't know if it was for the demolition
It's for the demolition.
or if it was for fire department
Yeah, and
practice.
there was not much left of that house on the inside.
I could see right through it.
Yeah, so there's, the training would have been significantly limited anyway, had we been able to use it. But we're not using it.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Okay,
Thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to go next to the manager's report, which,
Thank you. I was going to mention the house at 32848 Bingham Lane that is scheduled for demolition on Wednesday. We did try to coordinate a firefighter training situation the first week of January, but it just wouldn't work out with their permitting. And it possibly could have happened in February, but the homeowners, the property owners don't want to wait that long. So proceedings will begin on Wednesday for anybody that lives on Bingham Lane. And that's really all I have to mention.
any questions? Thank you. Next is the Economic Development Coordinator's report. Evgeny?
I don't have any comments to add unless there are questions from the council. Yes.
I read your thorough report. Thank you very much for what you're doing, especially in terms of the vacancy rate in the office buildings. But when it comes to new homeowners moving into Bingham Farms and the information that they get, how do you find out when a new homeowner takes possession of property?
When the property changes hands, deeds get updated, and so does the tax system, and we get notice from Southfield Township that a name has changed on the property.
Okay, so it's an automatic computer-generated notification?
I don't know if it's automatic on their end, I just know that we get it.
Okay, so you are aware of every new homeowner?
Unless something slips through their system, yes.
Okay, and then you take steps to have a welcome packet initiated?
Yes, generally when we find out that there is that there's a house sale, new resident, we plan to mail out a new resident packet, correct?
So it's mailed out?
Well, sometimes it's hand-delivered if someone comes in to see us.
Yeah.
But there is no welcome committee of any kind?
No.
Or anything, it's just from the office?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Did I see another question? Nope. Okay. Thank you. Next, we are going a little bit out of order here. We have the Police Department monthly report, and tonight we have Chief Roberts and Deputy Chief Lawson with us.
So I'll just mention a couple of things about our written report before I introduce Kurt Lawson here. I've been going through the end of the year statistics now that 2023 is over with, and as you can see from the report, it looks like our crime stats look really good. In terms of the Special Assessment District in particular, crime has actually gone down from last year, and it was really a low rate last year. So we're very happy, we're very pleased with the crime trends that have happened in Bingham Farms, and we hope to keep it that way in 2024. Thanks to Evgeny and Ken for helping us out. I mentioned last month that we were putting on a new crime mapping tool that was public-facing, that anybody could access. Well, it's now up on the village's website. And so if you're interested, if anybody is interested in going on and seeing what's happening, not only in Bingham Farms, but in the surrounding communities as well, you can click on that. You can set up your own notifications. If for some reason you want to know about burglaries in Bloomfield Township, you can click on that and it'll set up your own personalized crime map. So take a look at that when you get a chance and link to it. It's a pretty neat tool, and it gets automatically updated whenever we have a call for service. So it's a nice tool, nice thing for the public to see. And then lastly, I guess it's show and tell, and for me, I brought our new deputy chief, Kurt Lawson. We've been talking about this for a long time. We're thrilled to have him. Ken swore him in a couple of weeks ago. I think he's on his third week this week, and Kurt comes to us from West Bloomfield Police Department, where he spent almost 30 years. He rose through the ranks there and left there as deputy chief. Has a great background, great experience level. As Ken knows, because he sat in on a lot of the interviews, he just knocked it out of the park in the interview process. And so we're thrilled to have him. He'll take over for me sometime this summer when I finally decide to step aside. But did you want to say a few things, Kurt, since you're here?
I'll get out of the way. Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to be here. This is where I grew up. I grew up in just other side of Bingham Farms in Beverly Hills at 14 and Lasser. So it's like a coming home party for me. Everyone's been very welcoming. Both chiefs are fantastic. He is known throughout Oakland County and really the state of Michigan for his leadership, and I'm so thrilled that I'll be able to learn more from him over the next few months. So, and it's great to put some faces to the names. So, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Great first name, by the way.
Spelled a little different than yours.
We are going to move, we wanted to discuss the police department contract. This is something we've kind of been working on for quite a while, on and off, going through all of our contracts, and Kurt has sort of taken the lead on it. So do you want to introduce?
Thank you.
This?
So I think everyone on the council might remember that I'm sort of a proponent of making sure that we review all of the important contracts we have as they come due, and in fact, a little bit before they come due, so if we need to make any changes, we can do that. And one of the most important contracts we have, obviously, is with Franklin for the police department. That contract was signed in September of 2010, and it has not been amended since then. The contract, as Franklin and Birmingham have been interpreting it, has a provision which says that the contract goes for a 5-year period, which ended on June 30th, 2015. Then the contract says it will automatically renew for a 5-year term unless either party gives a notice of intent to terminate at least 1 year prior to the expiration of the current term. So if you assume we're on a term that began on July 1, 2020, and ends on June 30th, 2025, both sides will have committed to another 5 years if neither side opts out by June 30th of this year. And that's sort of the reason why I'm bringing it up now, is because we're going to be in for another 5 years if we don't do anything. And I am not suggesting in any way that we opt out of the contract. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm really thrilled with the police department that we have, and would say to Kurt that he's got really big shoes to fill. It's not anything like that. It's just that it seems like it might be a good idea to just look at it and review it. For those who were not on the council prior to November, I would mention that we did have preliminary discussions with Franklin before this, before your election, about some small minor terms in the contract and possibility of changing them. But those discussions sort of petered out without any kind of resolution. And since the membership in the council has changed, I didn't feel it appropriate to be like restarting discussions without bringing it before the council, because the council's opinion might have changed somewhat with new members and so on and so forth. The kind of changes we're talking about are things like, in the contract, it's clear that there's 1 year of a rollover, but it's not, in my opinion, completely clear. It's a little cloudy as to whether there are subsequent rollovers, and if there isn't a subsequent rollover, then it's expired already. Neither party is acting like that or anything. I just think it might be a good time to review that language and clean it up a little bit. The contract calls for us to make regularly scheduled payments to Franklin for services based on their estimate of how much the police department will cost at the end of each fiscal year. And there was a small timing problem in that their fiscal year, or they don't start their budget, they don't finish their budget for the next year until like a month after we do, so we were not getting information that we needed for our budget. And since we raised that, Chief Roberts has just stepped up, and despite the fact that the contract doesn't call for it, he's been giving us all the information. And I think both of our past two treasurers have been very happy with what he has done for us. It's just, it might be a good idea if we had some kind of language like that in there that's specified it. A last thing I'll just mention, two more things I'll just mention, and one of them is that in addition to the monthly payments, the way it works is that at the end of the year, Franklin audits their books and determines whether the police department cost more or less than they anticipated when they sent us the information when we started paying our bills. If it costs more than they thought, then they send us a bill. If it costs less than they thought, then they send us a refund. And the only issue that with that provision is that if you go, if they complete the review before December 30th, which they apparently have not done this year, the refund is to be paid, or our extra cost, if we owe extra, is to be paid immediately. And that can cause us some problems because we will have already set our budget and our millage rate, and we won't have budgeted for that extra amount. So I would propose that we try to change that so that we still pay it, and we still handle it the same way, but we not pay it till the next budgetary year so that we can budget for it. And then the final thing, and this one is probably a little bit more controversial, and I don't, in terms of getting agreement from everybody, is that the term of the rollover is once every 5 years. To me, 5 years seems a long time. If 5 years ago, I would never have known what COVID was or what it meant to us, and so on and so forth, and how it affected all of our lives. It just seems to me like maybe we could look to try and have the term be 3 years instead, which is, I believe, the term that the police department has with their union. So anyway, those are the kind of things that we would be looking to change or negotiate with Franklin. But again, I'm one voice, and there are 7 people on the council. So I just wanted to discuss it before we got too close to June, and ask if Chief Roberts has any comments, or our attorney, or any of you, in terms of whether we should proceed or not proceed.
I have a question. What do you see are the benefits of a 3-year versus a 5-year?
Well, the benefit to me would be if we go through June 30th and we don't opt out, then we're in for 5 years, no matter what happens. Okay? And if things stay the same way they are right now, then there's no benefit, because I wouldn't want to get out. But I can't predict the future, and I have no idea what's going to happen, 3 years from now or 4 years from now, whatever. Okay. That's the only reason that I would think that we might want to consider that.
I can't think of one good reason that we would want to leave their services.
No, and right now I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. So if anyone had any comments or thoughts about whether we should do this, or maybe people just don't even want to do it, I don't know.
One of the questions I have, and Chief, perhaps you can answer, since 2010, when this current contract began, how many years have we had a refund, and how many years have we paid more?
I don't have the information in front of me, but it seems like it's every other year to me, just intuitively thinking about it. Some years it's larger than others. Some years it's just a few $1,000s. Other years it's been $50,000. But it seems to me it goes back and forth. quite a bit. I don't think that anybody ends up any better or worse at the end of the day after all of this. The nice part is that you both share the same auditor. Raina has been doing the audits for both Bingham Farms and for Franklin, so she's very familiar with both villages, and we trust her greatly. She seems to do a fantastic job, and there's no concerns there about whether the numbers are accurate or not, at least that I'm aware of, having an outside auditor taking a look at it. But I don't know the answer to your question exactly, but I can certainly find out for you and can email you tomorrow.
As long as it, balances out in a 2-year period. But like Kurt suggested, knowing sooner when that deficit's going to hit our budget and planning for it is critical to us.
Right.
The other part of my question has to do with how frequent are union negotiations?
How frequent are union negotiations? So that has changed since I've been here. You're absolutely correct. The current contract is a 3-year contract that the officers have. It will end this calendar year at the end of the year. We have had, though, during the time that I've been here, 4-year contracts with the officers. So it's kind of a negotiation item, actually, when they sit down at the table. Some of the union membership likes to have longer contracts, some like to have shorter. I think 3 years is pretty typical, but we have had 4-year contracts before. And like I said, the current contract with the officers and the command staff ends the end of this December. So starting in about September, we'll probably be negotiating, not we, Kurt will be negotiating contracts with the officers at that time.
Thank you.
I just for whatever it's worth, for total transparency, first of all, let me say that I don't think in my discussions with Franklin, whether it's village administration or the council, would not be opposed to having a discussion with you at all about this if you'd like. However, I think this may open up a Pandora's box because there is at least 1 or 2 very vocal Franklin council members who don't believe that Bingham Farms pays enough. And so I would just caution you to tread lightly on that. I wouldn't say that it is a across the board thing, but there is definitely one very vocal council person who does not believe that Bingham Farms pays enough towards the police cost. So I don't know if you'd be opening up a Pandora's box with this or not. So
Thanks for that.
I don't remember exactly how it's split, because we're each paying based on the total cost. So whether it's there's an over or under at the end.
I think it's 35, 65. Is that what it is? 35%.
I don't remember. There's a formula in the contract that splits it.
35. Oh, thanks, Raina.
It's based on population. Your population versus Franklin's population.
But that's not inclusive of the 2 SAD officers, I don't believe.
Correct.
That's back down. So.
Okay, 35, 65.
So
Yes.
there's 3 times the population. They have, 3,000 residents, I think?
Yeah, but be careful with that too, because think about your population quadruples every business day because of
the
because of Telegraph Road, right?
Which is the SAD.
Which is the Special Assessment District, correct? Yes.
Which is a separate
Yes.
payment.
It's the old joke about the statistics. There's lies and there's damn lies kind of thing. But you can, you can twist the statistics a lot. But I would say that if you're paying 35% of the total police cost, I would say the call volume wise would dictate that you pay more than that. Just because, just looking at it every year, I would say for call volume, pure call volume, it generally runs around 55 Franklin, 45 Bingham Farms. So,
If that we'd also have to factor in the SAD port, because the 65-35 is non-SAD. So
correct.
You'd have to take that SAD in and figure out what proportion we're paying if you wanted to compare it to that.
Yeah. It's not an easy.
I don't know what the math would be.
But I know that Franklin's more than willing to have the discussion with you. I talked to the village administrator that you were going to be having a discussion about this tonight, and he said they'd be happy to sit down and chat with you about it if you wanted to. So I can facilitate that if you'd like.
To your earlier question, I was supportive of this. I think back when we talked about it, I continue to be. I understand the point on treading lightly on this, but we could also turn it the other way and say that they would struggle to fund the police department without us.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Not that I think that I would ever suggest anything other than what we have today, because I think
works.
police and fire are fantastic, and it's, best in class for this village, but if they made that argument, we could make the same, right? We could go buy it somewhere else.
You could.
Not that we would want to. I don't
theory,
suggest
you
that
could.
at all, but
In theory, you absolutely
if someone
could.
came at us saying we should pay now 60%.
Yes, I would, just knowing what I know, having been doing this for 40 years, you could absolutely, whether you would find it at anywhere near the cost that you're paying now is very unlikely, and at least not nearby us. If you approach, say, Bloomfield Township, and they looked at what you're paying now, they would probably laugh at you, quite frankly, because their rates are much higher. So, yes, you could look elsewhere, but I think you'd find that it would be cost prohibitive to do that.
Did the trustee or council person happen to mention what they thought that number should be?
No, but no, I don't think they've delved that far into it, but every budget year, I get the same discussion in our budget meetings. But then they never, they get outvoted generally and say, no, things are moving well, let's just leave it alone, kind of thing. So,
And we feel the same. Things are moving well. We don't want to, we're not trying to rock that boat that much. We're just trying to be fiscally responsible, and we're looking at all of our contracts, all of our bigger contracts, and going through them with a fine-tooth comb, which I think is just what we should be doing. And a couple of things had popped up, like Kurt said, a couple of years ago, and the contract hasn't been sort of gone over in a long time. This is nothing to do, I will reiterate again what Trustee Jones said. We are not unhappy with the service. We're not looking to change the service. We are not looking elsewhere. We are just doing what we're doing with all of our bigger contracts and feel like it might be worth just a conversation.
I agree, and if you look at who signed that, there's nobody left on either council or in the administration that signed that initial agreement back in 2010.
Right.
So,
right.
The minimum, that seems to make
Kathy's
sense.
name is on there. So.
Do you need us to voice our support, or how do you want?
Or it just doesn't.
I heard mine. You heard mine. But you don't need a motion.
I don't know if we need a motion, but I just want to make sure that, it's sort of the view of the majority of the council that we should proceed. If it's the view of the majority of the council that we shouldn't proceed, then we shouldn't. That's sort of the way I view it.
In my mind, talking about the union negotiation timeframe and the contract renewal timeframe might make some sense, because that's the largest portion of the budget, correct, personnel? And so if there is a dramatic difference in either benefits or wages due to negotiations, that clearly will impact us. And so I think that's worth a discussion.
Right, and again, the impetus or the reason to do this is because of the opt-out date, which is June 30th, whereas the negotiations are in September, I think you said. So it's pretty close. It's pretty close to the same time, but
So maybe that's one of our contract discussion points, is having the opt-out date align differently than it does now. Rather than an automatic renewal after 5 years, perhaps the opt-out date is just after the negotiations, if that makes any sense.
So it sounds like you feel like it is worth more discussion.
I think at least we're relatively new council members, not having had the benefit of that previous discussion. And to me, wages are what's driving everything these days. And especially our budget. We've got to go then and take this information, which is one of our largest budget lines, and plan our budget. So you can't do it intelligently after the fact.
Does anybody else have any strong feeling about it?
One of the questions I would have, and one of the things that Kurt brought up, was the dates don't quite coincide. How much of a problem would it be to change the date so the dates would coincide, or their budget could be set first and then ours?
well, I mean
Or is that,
I don't think
does
that
that really
would.
screw up the whole fiscal year thing?
I don't think that would work, because, I mean, their budget process just happens to be like about a month behind us, and
Or two, yeah.
we would have to like switch everything. But again, I want to just point out that since we raised this as a concern, Chief Roberts has gone like above and beyond trying to get us the information, even though it wasn't final budget information from them. And I think Bill would say that we've had the information that was necessary for us to do our budget, just because of Chief Roberts' efforts.
So it really wouldn't make a whole heck of a lot of difference if this young new chief could handle that too.
Yeah, I think.
Boy, they're really starting to get you already, aren't we?
But in my mind, a 3-year cycle versus a 5-year cycle, especially when the negotiations are currently at a 3-year cycle, at least that puts us in a smaller window to recover from any unforeseen significant cost variance.
I don't know
Well,
how
you
that.
probably still have a 1-year opt-out period.
Right.
Right, so I'm not sure that really, it shortens it, but I think we wouldn't know until we had already passed the opt-out and be in for the next 3. But shortening it reduces the risk from 5 to 3, but like if it would start this June, the opt-out would be a year before the next contract.
Right.
So we would,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
6/30/25 is the end of this current.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at least we would have, like you say, less exposure or shorter period of exposure.
Well, it sounds like it's worth further discussion, at least. We don't have to make any decisions tonight. It's just, do we want to,
Someday, yeah.
sort of increase our conversation about it?
Well, I'm only speaking on behalf of my current role as part of the Budget Advisory Committee, and and Bill and Aaron and I talked about the budget, but in a very small window last year. And we should really start talking about it now, or in a much larger window with all the contract renewals.
Okay, so what would you like the next step to be?
Well, if people think that we should go ahead, I would think the next step would be for Ken to contact Franklin to see if we could set up a meeting with his counterpart there.
Yes, we can. Yes, I think that sounds right.
Would it behoove us to read this contract? Or is it that?
I don't think it's, I think it would behoove you to read the contract, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
May we have access to it?
Pardon?
May we have access to it then?
I don't see why not. It's
Okay.
public contract.
Yeah, I can do that.
I can send it if you don't have
I
it.
have it. I can take care of that.
Yeah,
Okay. Just so we
sure.
know what the heck we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so next steps will be for our village manager to contact Franklin's village manager and decide where we go from there.
We'll set up a meeting, and I'll also get copies of the contract to everybody on this council tomorrow.
Okay. All right,
Got it.
thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was nice finally meeting you.
Thank you, and thank you for calling me young, I appreciate it.
That may be the only time, but
You've got big shoes to fill, but I think you're going to do a good job there.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Moving to old business, the zoning ordinance amendment second reading.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. We have a second reading for passage of zoning ordinance amendments. To refresh your memory, back late last year, Council directed Planning Commission to review several proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance, which are basically references to the regular code book regarding building and development procedures. So the Planning Commission went through the process, held a public hearing, created the proper language. You have seen it in your first reading last month. Our village attorney has reviewed it as well. And I believe that it's prepared now to be approved for you, by you, so that we can get it into the zoning ordinance. So with that, if anybody would like to make a motion in a second, I think that would be fine.
Okay. Is there time for question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other verbiage change other than the driveways?
Yeah, it's in your packet. There's quite a lot of it.
That's the red.
Yes, everything that's red has been added,
Okay.
or would be added if it's.
And we discussed all of the red issues. The tree and woodlands preservation and maintenance. How did that, where's the finished product I can look at that has all the new verbiage concerning that issue?
It's in the packet.
Well, I'm just seeing this part of it.
There's two. That's what it is. It's really a bunch of references.
Okay.
To the code book.
Yeah,
Yes.
go to the code book.
Right.
And find the
It doesn't
entire-
change any element of the code book at all.
Okay.
At all. It's just references so that if someone, say, is looking, well, I want to put in a swimming pool, or I want to redo my driveway. Where do I find that information? Where is the ordinance that regulates that? And they look in the code book, look in the zoning ordinance, and it's not there. They can now say, oh, it's chapter 98 of the code book.
I missed when we spoke about not just driveways, that we included signs, swimming pools, trees and woodland preservation and maintenance. Did we have that discussion?
Yes.
Yeah,
My
we did.
God.
May I answer the
Kurt,
question? I think you're asking. No
Yes.
wording of the tree regulation and ordinance has been changed. No wording of the driveway ordinance has been changed. These are just references to the existing ordinances in the zoning
And
ordinance,
now it's in.
which were not referenced there before.
Good.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Very intuitive.
The Planning Commission did a lot of work on this.
That's
So
correct.
A lot of that pre-leg work was already done before our first reading. And now this is the second reading. So if there's no further questions on that, we need a motion.
I would move that we would approve the wording presented here for the new zoning ordinances, or the change into the references of the zoning ordinances, because the ordinances didn't really change.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
We will move to new business, which is going to start with our audit presentation for fiscal year 2022-2023 by Ms. Raina Emmons. Thank you for coming tonight, Raina.
Oh, my pleasure.
You all have a packet here with the audit.
Good evening. Nice to start the new year this way. I have a very nice report for you. Again, my name is Raina Emmons. I'm a partner with PSLZ. The village did receive the highest level of audit opinion possible, which is an unmodified opinion. In layman's terms, a clean audit opinion. Starting out with a few highlights this year, revenue was up overall. Specifically, I'm talking about the general fund. Property taxes increased 3.67%, which we like to see. The year before that, just to give you an idea, was 2.07%. Of course, the village did not increase your millage rate at all, so that's all property tax values increasing. State share revenue was up just a little bit, about 4%. And something we don't usually talk about because there really isn't much to talk about are investment earnings, but this year it really moved the needle. So the village, we need to give Colleen, the prior treasurer, and Bill, current treasurer, have done a really nice job with taking advantage of the higher interest rates. You're well into the 5%, 5.35. And I know Bill's working currently on, taking advantage of some of the other municipal things that you are allowed to invest in for municipalities that are achieving that interest rate. So whilst maintaining liquidity, you're not locking up the money so that you can't use it if you need it, but investment earnings up. So the year before was about $3,600. This year is $70,000. So that's just to give you that nice broad rate. I can't even put a percentage rate on that. It's too big of a number. So very happy to see that. Also the village did receive the American Rescue Plan money at the end of 2022, and then also this year you received the Oakland County Critical Infrastructure Grant, $100,000. Now those are accounted for a little differently because I believe you're intending on using that on roads. You've started engineering on those road projects, so we only record in the revenue the amount to which you've spent the money. So we spent about $23,000 in total between those two grants this year in the fiscal year 2023, and unspent is about $197,000. That's on your balance sheet, so that didn't run through your fund balance yet. That's coming. So just so you know, that's nice to have that kind of in our back pocket. So as you spend the money, that will show up. Moving to the expenditures in the general fund, of course, as you were just talking about, police contract expenses, they were up 9% this year. Fire protection was up 16% this year. Ultimately, you added to the general fund balance $288,000, and your ending fund balance is $2.92 million. No money was transferred to major local street funds, even though the village is basically you're saving up for some significant road improvement projects. That's all you're accumulating that in the general fund and not moving it over to major local until you determine the projects and that type of thing. So until you actually start spending the money. No new debt, happy to report that. And lastly, the net pension liability this year. You ended at $162,000. The year before was $83,000. So it did go up $79,000, the net pension liability this year, mostly because of your pension plan is valued as of December 31st each year, and so this audit is your investments were valued as of December 31st, 2022, which was not a good day in the stock market, so it resulted in a net investment loss on the books, but in reality, the village has made up that money subsequently, but as it's recorded, you're showing a net investment loss in this audit, which dropped the funding percentage. So last year you were at 84% funded at the end of the year. Now you're at 69% funded. But again, we're recovering on we're anticipating, I think December 27th, I think was the last business day. I think that was a much better day in the market than the previous year. So hope to have a better report for you on those numbers next year. And with that, it's a lot of numbers thrown at you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So the $288,000 of revenues over expenditures, when we did the budget for that year, we wanted it to be $150,000 over so that we could then move $150,000 to our assigned road projects fund. Is there any reason, and given that we made way more than that, is there any reason that we can't do that you're aware of, or that we shouldn't do that?
That is totally at council's discretion, and whether you'd like to move it to an assigned road projects. You did project for that in the budget, I'm trying to think of the timing. The year before you had, so on page 13, that's the balance sheet for the general fund, and the previous year assigned for road projects was $300,000. This year we're showing the $450,000, so you've upped it $150,000 from the year before. But that doesn't change your fund balance number. This is just an assignment of your total $2.9 million. We have $450,000 assigned for road projects.
Great. And one of my pet things is the pension fund, and I'm surprised to see the number all the way down to 69%. We have had a report from MERS and it was like 79%. Do you have any idea why that would be different?
It really does depend on a couple things. One is when so they have newer numbers. The numbers I'm reporting on from the MERS actuarial valuation report is 12/31/22, which you didn't receive until about May or June of '23. So they have newer numbers now that they're dealing with net investment gains, hopefully. And also any kind of change in actuarial assumptions that the state may have passed along.
Okay.
Experience rate changes.
So I've had several conversations with our treasurer about this, and I was always worried that if we wanted to try and like move some money from our general fund into the pension fund, extra money, that somehow it would adversely affect our budget for this year, that it would count against expenses for this year. And I believe Bill told me that he didn't think that you had indicated that may not be the case, that we may be able to move money, I guess, from the general fund just to the pension and not have it impact our...
So if you make an extra contribution, whether it's on a monthly basis or a one-time lump sum, which is I believe what you're talking about, that will impact your current budget. So that's going to be an expense of the current budget year because that's going over into the pension trust fund. It's completely out of the general fund and you won't be able to touch that anymore. So I'm not discouraging you from doing that by any means. Respectfully, that's a priority decision by council. Probably something to talk about maybe at budget time or before. I mean, you've got some good numbers now on how you ended last year. And see that there was a surplus. I know you're also working on roads, so that's kind of, again, it's council's decision on how you want to prioritize that. Do you want to put more away for roads? Do you earmark it more for roads? Do you want to take a little of it and make a lump sum contribution? Really, it's council's decision on that.
But it would hit as an expense in this current year.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But you could do, I don't know what that line item looks like, but you could do a budget amendment before the end of the year and you'd be just fine with that.
Even though we don't have like 30,000 in our budget that's like unallocated or anything like that, we only have like 8,000, I think. I think it was something like 8,000.
Well, you're almost 7 months into the current fiscal year. There might be something that is not an expenditure perhaps that's not coming in as high as you had planned on it as well.
I think this is correct, Rainey, correct me. We could also take part of our planned surplus if we so chose and put it towards this with a budget amendment.
Correct.
I don't know whether, I'm not sure that what year it hits the expense means a lot. It's just whether we take it out of the fund and don't have access to it.
Okay.
I think through an amendment we could deal with the concern you have,
okay,
if I understand it right. I think the time, to your point, the timing of it's so far lag, because now we're talking about December of '22.
Correct.
The investment losses through that date. Obviously in '23 it's going to show something much more positive. I don't think I've seen. I don't think we've been provided the data for that. I don't think it'll be till April or May till we get that.
Correct. But you see how one year in the year I'm reporting with a net investment loss of, was it 45,000? Yeah, 45,000 was the net investment loss. It's actually, looking historically, the last time you had any kind of net investment loss in the pension was 2019? It was about 5 years ago. Just to put that in perspective. It's not a normal thing for you to have a net investment loss. It's just a cyclical, fortunately, MERS does not have a net investment loss, as they don't have a track record of that. But the market is the market.
I have a few questions. So, a couple things. One, the timing of the audit. Should I read anything into the timing in which we're going through this? Were there unusual challenges in this audit or anything?
I would not read into anything that was it's a cycle of everybody's due at the same time type of thing, of course, and we have a new treasurer this year.
Okay.
So the goal is to go back to how our previous cycle, and so audit field work more like in September and presenting to you at the end of October, end of November at the latest.
Any matters that, you mentioned the opinion, matters, we should discuss any matters that were scope issues or significant findings or anything like that we should be aware of as the governing body?
I am required to tell you if there are any issues, then that's one of the reasons why I'm here tonight, but I have nothing like that to report to you. But I'd like to also emphasize that in a positive, that I don't have anything to report to you. I've worked very closely with Bill, and he's come on board and has really taken to the position, and he's making good connections and making the right investment choices and talking to all the right people in the county and that type of thing. So I'm very pleased. You also had a software conversion, a major one, in the middle of all this as well, like right before your fiscal year end. So, you had the prior software through about June 10th. And then the last 3 weeks of the year, we're on a completely different software. So there were a lot of moving parts this year, but all good. We ended up well. The books are in great shape. You're in good hands.
I think I ask you this question every year. It's a real auditor question. So on our cash investments, obviously it's a huge part of the balance sheet, luckily. Were you able to complete independent confirmations of the majority of those?
Yes, 100%.
100%. Okay. And the last question I had was on page 25. In the deposits and investments section, we talked about custodial risk and the fact that the village's investment policy, neither state law nor the village's investment policy requires consideration of custodial risk. I actually thought the policy does, because I think even updated through the last meeting, we have limits on what can be invested in, or what we can invest with certain banks, which I guess I took to be contrary to that statement, but maybe I'm not understanding that statement.
Was there something that you changed in the investment policy since the fiscal year end?
No. I mean, we made some changes, but it's always had a limit on what we could.
Which we have at the very bottom of page 25.
Yeah, which is there. I saw it at the bottom. To me, I thought that addressed credit risk, custodial credit risk, but the two statements don't.
Well, okay, but your policy puts a limit of $600,000 in any one, yet FDIC insurance is $250,000 per institution. So, they don't exactly line up. So that's why it's, we show here's what your bank balances were, and of that X amount is not FDIC insured for a number of reasons. None of them bad, but
I was taking exception to the word doesn't include consideration. It kind of includes consideration, but maybe not.
Okay, we can look at the wording of that.
I just want to make sure I understood that if there was something else you thought we should do to consider the credit risk, that we would take that into account going forward. That's really why I asked the question.
That's a great point. We will look at that.
Okay. Let us know if I think I would appreciate your recommendation if there's something we could do you think that we need to do to narrow that risk.
I like the fact that depositories are brought to council, so you can decide whether it's a bank, a credit union, because now with these rates that that we are all seeing that we haven't seen in a long, long time, the type of financial institution, it's what council is comfortable with. It could be a gut instinct, could be your own personal experience, could be your business experience that tells you what's my comfort level with, ABC financial institution. Does it raise your eyebrow? Does it, are our antennas up? That type of thing. And I don't get involved with that as the auditor. It's respectfully, if council approves it and they are a legitimate financial institution, but that is, you have resolutions to that extent, and that's going above and beyond what most communities do. So as far as a monitoring process and an approval process, so that's really great that you're able to do that.
Thank you for, I thought that it was well prepared, so good materials,
Thank you.
so thank you. Bill, you too, thank you.
Are there any other questions, concerns, or comments for Raina? No?
And I want to say thank you to the staff, and everyone's very accommodating. I appreciate it, and yet, all the documents, and everyone was, everything was very efficient and, very gracious, and I just want to say thank you for all their hard work.
And we want to put that right back to you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
We know it's a lot, and we've had a lot of changes back to back to back.
All good. All good.
With our treasurers, and so thank you for sort of shepherding us through all of that. Appreciate it.
One quick question, did the changeover in the, that's what I'm looking for, the computer program, did that help a lot with what you guys went through? Because I know Bill was not necessarily tearing his hair out, but but did that help a lot with the whole new?
This should help going forward.
Going forward, okay.
The timing of which we didn't have control necessarily of that timing. It was the software company that wanted they kind of determined the cutoff, and Bill went with it, and we made it.
Okay.
But going forward, your reporting and that type of thing should be much smoother.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely a positive.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raina.
Appreciate your time. Enjoy your evening. If you want to stay, you can. You feel free to go. We do have a couple of discussion points that Trustee Jones wanted to bring up about transferring funds.
Thank you. When we prepared the budget for 2022 and 2023, we prepared it so that there would be an excess of hopefully $150,000 with the intent of transferring that money from the general fund unassigned portion to the general fund assigned road projects. Since it came in at $288,000 over instead of $150,000, it seems like that we have the money to do that. And so I would like to move that we transfer $150,000 from the general fund unassigned balance to the general fund assigned road projects to be in compliance with what we contemplated when we did the 2022-2023 budget.
You're not thinking the whole balance?
No.
Can I ask a question, or you made a motion?
Well, there's a motion.
Yeah.
Is there a second? And then we'll have discussion.
I guess
Discussion after?
It's a motion, then a second, then discussion.
Okay. Yeah, a second.
Any
I
discussion?
think we already moved. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we already moved the 150. So we're
That was my
talking about
understanding.
removing the excess over 150 between 150 and 280.
I don't think we have moved the 150. Am I correct on that?
I have not made the adjustment yet, but I am talking to Raina to make sure that, as you all know, Kurt, you've been in the office, I've got the sticker since the day I came in. We had the conversation to move the 150 over. We did account for it when we were doing the budget, but I was always told that we had to wait till we closed the year and then we would move it over, if I'm not mistaken.
So you have, if I may, you've been moving $150,000 a year toward this road project, and we've completed the third year of that. So that's why we have $450,000 reflected on the balance sheet. So you would be adding an additional, so were we at 300 or?
I believe we were at 300 and the 150 would bring us to 450, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But I thought we were at 450.
We are at 450.
And
Yeah.
That's how I read it.
I thought in the budget process, we went through and said, If it's budget, we got 150 left over, that should be assigned to roads. And I assumed that just went in, it obviously is not an expense because it's just moving fund, but as part of the preparation of these statements, it moved to that.
Correct.
So,
And the budget document is authority to do that.
yeah.
Oh, so it's already been moved? I thought, I was of the impression that we had to move it.
I guess I would have to look at how many years you've been doing I thought this is year 3 on that 150.
Because I don't think what you're suggesting is to move the difference between 280 and 150.
No, it's
more,
not.
'cause
To just do the normal move.
Right.
I thought, when I read this, I took that as it was 300 at June 30, 22, and it became 450 in here.
Because you had a surplus last year in 22,
Right.
and that doesn't get reflected until the next cycle.
Okay, well, if we've already done it, then I would withdraw the motion.
We could move more. Here,
That was my
other
question.
take also about whether it's, this group could decide to move $1 million this meeting into that, and we could the next meeting move $1 million back out. It doesn't really matter. It's just a side, right? I mean, the stuff we have in the other funds, that's for the roads, and that cannot be touched by anything else.
It's restricted, correct.
So to me, whether we move another 150, whether we could move $1 million tonight, if we're going to end up spending I believe, we'll spend a big part of our general fund on the roads, whether it's assigned to roads or not.
And I believe you traditionally have been doing the 150 movement during the budget cycle, not during the audit, not at the time of the audit.
Okay, well, I was under the impression that we had not moved it yet for the calendar year 2022 and 2023.
Because you didn't know what the ending number was.
Right. If that's not the case, if we already have moved it, then I would just withdraw the motion. Because I just wanted to make sure that we did what we had planned to do with the budget.
I would defer to Bill, but as I understood it, in this fiscal year, in the 23 fiscal year, we moved 150.
We budgeted to move the 150 if we had the surplus, yes.
Okay, and have we moved it?
I personally have not moved anything. I have not moved anything, but you know what I can do is I can sit down now that it's closed and review it, and we can look at it, and if there's another 150 that we could put in, obviously it's up to council, but I don't think that would be a bad thing, especially with all the things that we're looking at
I guess the only
regarding the
really was
roads.
to go back and see when we started that, and if this is the 4th year or the 3rd year,
Because we've got 450 showing as unrestricted assigned for roads, 450 as of June 30th, 2023.
Yeah, the question is
Is it
was that the 4th year or the 3rd? Should we now make it?
So if we make it the 4th year, then it would be another 150.
Right.
Bring it to 6.
That's right.
Right.
But I'm not saying it's not important, but in my view, whether it's assigned there or not,
Right.
it's not.
Madam Chairman, could I just withdraw the motion until we get clarification?
Hang on.
I was just going to say that. If we could look into it, and if it's not been moved, we can move it in February. Is that?
Right, that's
Okay,
fine.
all right.
I agree with the concept that we should make sure that 150
Right.
move should be
Right. Right.
100% support.
No, I appreciate your point, and if you're right, then I wouldn't have made the motion to begin with, so.
Okay,
So we're withdrawing that motion.
got it.
And
So the second
then I
one,
won't-
hopefully I'll have a little bit more luck with this one with Alexa, has to do with the pension fund. Since I came to council in 2017, one of my main goals has been to try and make sure that our pension fund for the village employees and former employees is adequately funded, and that the village pension system does not become a drain on the village as it has been for other communities. When we hire employees, we in the past, we had as part of our agreement with them that we would fund their pension. And to me, it's not only a legal obligation we do, but it's sort of a moral obligation. People took the job and worked at the job assuming that they were going to get those pensions. And so Well, I've been on the council, we've done a couple of things to try to help alleviate any potential pension problems like the city of Detroit has had, for example. And one of the things is that we did is in 2020, we made an extra payment of $30,000 to the pension fund. And another thing we did is we stopped the defined benefit pension plan for new employees so that won't escalate in the future with additional employees. Having said that, there have been some factors during that same time period not really in our control that have had the reverse effect. One of the things is that they keep changing the assumptions for the pension plan. For example, I think at one point in time they increased the life expectancy of the people in the plan, and that makes the plan more expensive. Another thing they did was they decreased the amount that they were assuming that the assets were going to earn year over year to 7%, which I still think is a little high, but still, that's what they did. And before that, it was higher. And so as a result, despite the fact that we've been trying to make this better, it actually is not better. And the numbers that I had were from the MERS report and are different from what we just saw in our package today. But if you look in the package, there was a table 7 from the MERS report. And, when I came on in 2017, I believe it was, we were at 87% funded, and with a underfunded liability of $47,965. And as of December 31st, according to the MERS report, we're down to 79% funded and $115,290 underfunded. Since we just had finished a year that we had $288,000 in surplus, 150 of that going to the roads, that leaves us with like $138,000 in surplus. And I would like to see us make another payment to reduce the unfunded liability, to make sure that future councils don't have to worry about an unfunded liability issue. And saying that, I also fully agree with what our auditor said, that one of the biggest factors driving the decrease in the last year was because of the investment year was such a bad year, and the next year was a really good year, and so the funding levels are going to go up, even if we don't do anything. It's just that I don't think they're going to go up anywhere near 100%, which is where I would like to see it be. And so, just as a guess kind of thing, I was thinking about trying to add another $30,000 to the pension fund to bring the unfunded level down. That would still leave us from last year having about $100,000 that we are not, that's just going to raise the amount of the general fund. So that's what I'd like to propose, unless I screw this up too.
No, I appreciate what you said. I would just maybe make one clarification, or at least what I think would be a clarification for the group, but changing the assumptions, like they changed the assumptions, doesn't make the pension more or less expensive to the village. It shows us having a higher or lower surplus, because at the end of the day, whatever assets we have in there will have actual returns, and we will pay people while they're alive. And those whether the actuaries think they'll live to 80 or 85, it's only a matter of it's only a matter of how it's going to bounce around until ultimate settlement of the liability. So, to me, I wouldn't be too focused on what those assumptions do, but it's a matter of whether we think what it really comes down to, because we've locked the ability for that liability. No new employees are getting it. We've done all the things that I think we can control. Now I think it's a matter of whether we think the village is, whether we're going to earn more investing with the pension fund or the 4% we're getting at the banks. And I would tend to agree that we would, if we can afford it, we're better off getting the return that the MERS people get on the pension, because ultimately that'll result in less cash outflow from the village. I think the other stuff muddies the water. The accounting for it muddies the water a lot. You can correct me if I said something that's not appropriate, but so I would be supportive of adding that 30. I think we're all focused on needing money for the roads, but I think this is a responsible thing for us to do to continue to reduce the risk.
Which one then would leave another 100.
Way of yes, I agree.
Which then would leave another 108 to just kind of floating there.
Yes.
Yeah, I would support that.
I think you might want to abstain from that. But
Yeah, okay.
so if
I will recuse myself on that.
if there aren't any other comments or questions, then I would move that the village transfer $30,000 from its unassigned general fund to the unassociated surplus account in the village deferred benefit pension plan.
I would second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One recusal.
One recusal, yeah.
That covers like the budget amendment, like that. We don't have to do anything separate to amend the budget to deal with that.
I don't think so, but I will find
That's
out.
what the motion is for.
Okay. Thank you very much for all of your time and attention to that. It's a lot. Next is the Roads Project Advisory Committee. First thing we need to do is have a motion to create the committee, and we did talk about some of the kind of the parameters at our last meeting. We talked about having the committee consist of 2 trustees and 5 village residents, up to 5 village residents. The meetings would be here in the chambers every other Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. The first meeting would be January 31st. And that the committee would be charged with bringing to village council not less than 3 and not more than 5 proposals regarding the financing of the village roads, and timelines for each of those financing proposals, and that the committee would report its findings to the council no later than our May 20th village council meeting. So that's sort of where we were, and anybody, we can add to that, or if people feel like we've pretty much included everything that we're looking for and put the parameters around, we can just include all of that in a motion.
My only question would be, do we really need that many meetings? Can it be done in 2, 3, 4 meetings?
I feel like we're already asking them to do a lot
If
in
we
a
ask for
very
3 to 5 proposals,
short
varying
period of time.
proposals, that
Right.
will take the time.
I don't know if it'll take that long, but
Well, and maybe it won't, but I mean, I would like to give them the opportunity to meet that many times.
and if they decide, hey, we're done, okay, then we're
Yeah,
done.
if they're done, they can bring it to us early. That would be
Even
great.
better.
Sure.
But I think it's going to take a lot of time.
We just modify.
I think until, I'm sorry.
We just modify the motion to say no later than 5:20 or sooner, if available.
Yeah. My comment was that we've not really done what would be a needs assessment or a task analysis, which in you're doing project management, you have to understand the scope and the scale. And when we assign people to take a look at the project, we're relying on their expertise to actually do it. And I think it would be helpful, I can see setting guidelines, and we know what our drop dead date is, that we also provide them with time to do that initial investigation to see what it's going to take for them to come to a product that we're looking for. So I'm just saying that, to say that, you know, you're going to have all this done at this time when we don't know what all this done is yet. They haven't really looked into it.
Well,
So-
the reason we have the date as May 20th is because we need to get the language.
You need to get the language to the county approximately second weekend of August, or second Tuesday of August, which means you need to have a motion to approve the ballot language, a resolution to approve the ballot language in July.
Right.
So I think you gave yourself an extra month there just to...
Right.
Just to be
Well,
safe.
actually, no, I take that back because as I recall, that's a charter amendment that you have to let sit on the table, right? So, yeah, July will work.
Right. So we need time to get it back, have time to discuss it as a council, understand it, discuss it, feel comfortable with what we're going to do, because we're going to make the decision after the recommendations come to us, then we're going to make the final decision. So I didn't want council to only have 1 month to make that final decision, and then it would need to go to our attorney to make sure we get the language correct, and then get it turned in in time, if it's going to go on the ballot.
Yeah.
You have to have it ready by July because you have to adopt the resolution in July.
Right.
Did we not have a discussion that if we are not comfortable by July having language, if it's going to go to ballot, there was the option of special election? Yes, it cost about $25,000. I think someone was going to look into the cost of a special election, especially since this is also a presidential year. We've got the marijuana issue on the ballot, possibly, most likely, and so adding the road situation to the November ballot really stacks that November ballot. So we may want to take a look at the strategy and all of this timing, because timing could be very critical for the right decision.
If you were likely to do a special election, it would likely be after November, because I think you're already going to have 3 elections this year. I think you're going to have a February and April. February, August, and then November. So having 4 elections in 1 year is really
Right.
really sad.
That's a lot. Plus, you usually get a much better turnout. Like, because it is a special or a presidential election, you usually get
A little more people.
But Diane is
to come.
technically correct. You can have a special election. I'm just
Right.
saying if you had that, it would likely be after November, just because of the
Right.
3 you've already got coming.
Right.
So we shouldn't feel that, drop dead, a gun to our head for a decision if we're not comfortable with the information, and we ask the Road Advisory Committee to go back and get a little different viewpoint on something. I think that's within our purview.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
That July drop dead date is only if you're trying to get on the November.
Okay.
Right.
Right. I understand what you're saying, and if we don't find anything that would come up with anything we like, then we just wouldn't vote to put it on the ballot. No question about that. But I would mention that, in that November election, when there's going to be a president elected, there's also going to be several new board members elected. And you might almost be like starting over, like having to re-educate people again. And I would hate to see that happen, because we've already missed the construction season for next summer, right? And so the longer we put this off, I mean, it almost is making a decision. It's making a decision that you're going to wait and do anything. I understand your concern, and I'm not trying to dismiss them or anything like that. I'm just saying that there are other reasons why we might want to try to get this done, to have something on the ballot in November.
We need the support of the community to move forward.
Well,
To do
absolutely.
something for just making a deadline without the community support is just dooming us to failure.
I totally agree with that, because we can put whatever we want to on the ballot. If it doesn't pass, then we just all, we've wasted a lot of time. I totally agree with that, but I'm just saying that we need to do whatever whatever we can do to get, if at all possible, to get it done by then so that we don't lose momentum.
Oh, absolutely, all good faith efforts.
Right, which is why I think we put that date on. We, if they could come back and say, we don't know, we can't do it. That's fine, but they need to come to us by May and tell us that. We need to know in May if we're going one way or the other. Because if we're going one way, we have to know by then, so that council has time. If we go the other way, then that date doesn't matter.
Yeah, also depends on the solutions that the committee comes up with, too.
Right.
3 to 5 proposals leaves a lot of room for wiggle room.
Right. Right. I mean, it's a huge lift. It's definitely a huge lift. We know that it's a huge lift, and fortunately, we'll have a couple of council members there who will be able to, update us on what's going on. If we need to make adjustments, we can make adjustments. The May 20th date is not. I mean, we can change it. We can make another motion to change it in the future, but I think that the committee needs to know what they're working with, and they need to have a goal as well. Because I would hate for May to come and they say, we didn't know. And we're like, we gotta know, one way or another.
And as you said, all of this is a goal. You can change, the council can change that date.
Right. At any time.
So is a motion on the floor to create the committee with the language that you stipulated?
Well, I'm asking if anybody wants to add anything to that. This is what we had discussed at the last meeting. And so, we can make a motion with these things that we discussed last time, or if anybody feels like there's something missing.
And I think even making the motion for that, understanding too that this is more fluid than not. We don't know what the committee's going to do. They may decide, hey, we need to meet more, but we may decide we don't need to. Okay, that's up to the committee.
Right, and that can totally be changed as well. We just needed.
This is more of a
to know-
guideline than anything else.
Right, when people were putting their names up for the committee, we needed them to know what they were biting off.
Right.
But if they say, hey, we want to meet every week, or hey, this is going great, we're
Let's
going
go
to
for
meet
it, yeah.
once a month, that's up to the committee.
Yeah. I will move that we adopt this motion.
Okay, one question. Sorry.
Can we?
He made a motion.
Yeah, I made a motion, so second.
Second.
Well,
second.
Aaron
Oh, you
seconded
seconded
it,
it.
so now discussion.
Now you go.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about the approximate length of existence. I was thinking about that today quite a bit, and thinking that it's almost as though we leave it intact, it becomes evolutionary, because we're always going to have roads. We're not going to be able to do all the roads at once. So we're going to be doing maybe every 2 years, every 3 years, a segment. And
That's kind of what this committee is
right.
is to do.
Yeah, exactly, but the fact that, so we don't get caught like we have this time, where we're unfunded for it, it might be prudent to have some form available, like it's an ongoing, a long-term plan, a long-range plan, as opposed to something immediate because we have to do it now. Just a thought.
That's a good point. You don't have to put a term on it. I mean, it can stay in existence and just not meet until the next time you need them to meet, so.
Yeah.
Right.
It could be a
And-
standing committee, in other words.
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
And I think DE brought that up last time, that this would be like kind of an evolutionary thing. The May 20th date is when we need them to come to us.
Right.
We're not saying that's necessarily the end of the committee, or that might be the end of people's ability to
The
be on the
committee
committee.
may, the committee may evolve into something else, into something else, into something else.
Where we go from there
I kind of look at this
is
as
open.
being, how are we going to fund this thing? And maybe I'm
And which
overstating
version?
it, but it's, how are we going to fund this and what's the time frame? Well, we have this idea with this time frame. And we have, as Aaron brought up, do we not do anything? Do we do, but again, that's for the committee to
That's the
decide.
committee.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably
we could be done
overstating
in 3
things,
years.
but yeah.
Or we could be done in 5 years, or 15 years, or
Or-
20
yeah.
years. We don't
Or
know
somebody
yet.
come up with a brilliant idea, boom, we're done.
Right.
Okay, terrific.
Right. Yes.
Just as a reminder, I mean, the May 20th deadline includes meetings every other week from the end of this month until May. I would assume that they wouldn't be meeting every other week after that. Right?
Right.
Okay, so that's important.
And again, I think that's really for the committee to decide what do they need to do.
Right.
So the motion, as you presented, stands.
With a second.
Yeah.
With a second.
Or did,
So we have a first, a
I
second
seconded it.
discussion? Do you want me to state it again, or?
Do you need it to be restated?
If I can have that
If
after
we
the
have
meeting,
it
I'm
written
good.
down, that's good.
Okay.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Now comes the hard part.
Next is appointment of the committee members. I would like to begin this by reading a letter sent by trustee Debbie Hedge to Ken and I, dated January 19th, 2024. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to read through the applications for the Roads Project Advisory Committee. I've reviewed them all very carefully and thoughtfully and asked myself this question: How and what would this individual contribute to the committee in helping it fulfill its stated mission objectively? I have full confidence that Lisa shares the same goal and will appoint the best candidates for the 5 positions. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Cordially, Debbie Hedge. So,
I have a question.
okay.
I have more information about one of the applicants that was not included that I would like to provide.
Okay.
All right?
Can we do that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's important. We have a big project, as Kurt said, it's monumental, and so
Kathy,
I think,
I have copies.
oh, good, because I have one. You want to pass that over to Kurt?
Oh, yeah, I said it.
Pass this on. I appreciate Kathy bringing up this matter because the application itself from this individual was brief, and I knew of some of the qualifications of the individual that weren't at all obvious from the application. So that's part of the reason that you're getting a little more information, because some of the applicants were very complete and actually send along separate CV. So this gives an opportunity to put all the candidates on a little more equal basis.
Does anybody need more time to read that?
You've interviewed all of them.
I have. Yep. So I would like to sort of read where we're at, what's been done, and then at the end make a motion. Thank you to all those who filled out the application for the Resident Roads Committee. Making the decision to dedicate time, talent, and energy to the village is much appreciated. We received 7 applications. 6 of the 7 chose to continue the process by responding to my interview request. All of the interviews went well, and it was a pleasure speaking with the applicants. I'm choosing to appoint all on one slate to avoid publicly discussing personal information. The committee I wish to appoint will represent both public and private roads with a mix of 4 public road residents and 3 private road residents. The committee will also represent a wide range of the village, including south of 13 Mile Road, north of 13 Mile Road, private roads, and condo owners. Some of the expertise being brought to the table will be someone who has worked on a road project in a neighboring community and has some novel ideas on how to fairly share the cost between public and private roads. Someone who is currently a managing partner in a company focused on strategy, venture capital, and corporate finance, and has worked for over 20 years in investing and financing large infrastructure projects. Someone who is an engineer that has worked on large projects to modify facilities and infrastructure. Someone who is a former Bingham Farms trustee and planning commission member who is trained in organizational management and was involved in the previous Village Roads project. And someone who is a CEO of a large company who has expertise in finance, problem solving, and communication. The committee will also include 2 current village trustees who have knowledge of the past and present village. One is a public road resident and one is a private road/condo resident, and both will be able to communicate what council is seeking from the committee. I feel very confident to make a motion to appoint Mason Elmiscati, James Burley, Bill Golnitz, Tony Grinnan, Eric McAlexander, Trustee Kurt Jones, and Trustee D.E. Hageman to the Roads Project Advisory Committee. May I have a second?
I second the motion.
First and a second. Any discussion?
I would just comment and I appreciate the time you spent interviewing it. I was very impressed by the residents of this village that volunteered their time to do this and their experience, and I think we have a great group. I think you had an abundance of talent to choose from.
For sure.
And I would remind residents that are not on that slate that the meetings will be open to all residents. And to be honest, we'll have plenty of opportunity to participate in those meetings and share your views as a resident of Bingham Farms. So whether or not it's one of the 5, I think it's a bit of a, I think you can still provide tremendous value to the village. I'd encourage every resident to come if they can. I know we can't seat every resident here, but we'll find a bigger place if that's a problem.
If we get that many, we'll definitely find a bigger place. Thank you for that.
The one comment I would make is I would also encourage Gail Sumners with her background to possibly participate or at least be in the audience. And I'd love to have Aaron, as much as he could, be there because his head of numbers, I think, would really help too.
Right.
After I read the resumes, I think you're going to be. I think you got a real expert here. But I will participate to the extent.
I would appreciate it.
Would you like to do roll call?
I don't think we have to.
Okay.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
All right. I will get information to everybody tomorrow. And also, just so that we have talked about trying to Zoom these meetings as well.
Yes.
Not that people would be able to, they would be able to view it, but not necessarily throw questions out at the committee. It'd just be like a viewing on the screen. It wouldn't be as astute, I guess, as the meetings that you see today with the cameras and stuff like that. It'd just be a stationary but it would allow people to at least view in. So we're still talking about doing that.
That's
Hopefully we
good
can-
too, because then if they have comments or questions, talk to you or what have you.
Yeah, exactly.
Email them.
Email,
Right,
perfect, yeah.
right, we'd make that point clear at the beginning of every
More
meeting.
ideas is not a bad thing.
Right.
Right, anybody that has any information or ideas or anything can, as always, with every topic, contact the office anytime.
Right.
Or myself, or a committee member. The more we can talk about it, the better. Okay, thank you very much for that. We are going to move to the treasurer's report.
Thank you, President Blackburn. We have two motions, as we do every meeting, under the Treasurer's Report. The first is approving of the bills. There was check disbursement report that's in your packet that spans from the date starting December 14th, 2023 through January 19th, 2022. The total out of the general fund that was dispersed is $172,305.27. The same dates for the gas and weight fund, which was, again, I'll repeat, December 14th, 2023 through January 19th, 2024. And there was just one bill. It was for $450. The total for the combined out of both funds is $172,755.27. So if there's any other questions from council, I'd be glad to answer them as always.
Is there a motion to approve the bills?
I will move that we approve the bills.
Second.
You got it. No, that's good. That's good. No, that's all right.
Any discussion?
Step all over me.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Great, thank you. The second motion under the Treasurer's Report is to accept the financial statements for December 2023. As I go through, it's also in your packet, but I always look again at where we are year-to-date. We are now 6 months into this fiscal year, or 50% of the fiscal year. And one thing that I focus in and look at is the expenses as far as a percentage base to see how it tracks compared to this year versus last year. We're at 45.63%. Last year we were at 48.4%, so we're tracking right in line like we usually do every month so far in this fiscal year. Before moving on to the investments, I just wanted to go through there. Again, it's in your package. If there's any questions that you have that I can answer, again, I'd be more than happy to do that. No questions? Okay. I'm also going to move now to the investments for December of 2023. That is also in your packet. We've had, most of them were updated. You'll see that as we go down through on the general fund, we do have one that is for CIBC, which is Canadian Imperial Bank Commerce. They have a CD there that is going to be expiring on the 29th. I had a meeting at the bank with our relationship manager there, and we've set up already what the it will be going to. The interest rate is not as high as it was because rates are coming down a little bit, but what we've done is, you'll see it in the next investment report, but that's all scheduled to come and do as it is. We will get the interest that they will send to us, and then we will just renew with them under another CD. And pretty much under the road funds, the investments have pretty much stayed the same, with obviously the interest that is added from last month's investment report. And if there's any questions on the investment portion that I've provided, please again just let me know and I'll be happy to answer that.
Any questions?
Do we need a motion to accept the financial statements?
Yes.
I would so move.
Go ahead, Aaron. Take the second. I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to trustee comments.
I am thrilled to see the involvement of our community in this road advisory committee, and to know that so many talented individuals care enough to give such a commitment of time. I say that we take with real serious credence the work of this community and continue to look at their recommendations, even as they go along the way. The other comment is I'm anticipating Kurt's new involvement as our police chief, and Kurt with a C. And I trust that he will be at our subsequent meetings. I hope so. That's it.
I'm just happy to get going on the roads. I think it's going to be exhausting, but a lot of fun.
My concern is to have a member of the committee that is proficient at putting the information they gather and formatting it on a computer to present to people. You know, it's like the project manager that sees that all of this is done, and having done those for 30 years, I'm just not sure that the people that are going to be on this committee are prepared to do that. We'll see.
There has to be some kind of recording.
Yeah, I mean, there will be minutes and that sort of thing, and, I mean, yeah, so.
Number-wise, well, let's see what the committee, let's see what the skills are. Maybe the engineers will have to help us with that. It's possible.
Right. We do still have HRC, so that's a good
But
thing.
we have to pay them.
Right.
So let's not pay anybody that we don't have to pay if we have the resource in the village.
Well, hopefully somebody on the committee will be able to help with that.
Go Lions.
Right.
Don't jinx them.
Last but not least, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There you go.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion adjourned at 8:51.